Today is 26 July. It's Sunday. I'm Charlie Garrett, and this is the CG Prophecy Report, a tale of two park systems. That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. Okay, we got some news from Israel here. From the Times of Israel, the U.S. House defeats amendment to end Israel aid, but nearly half of Democrats vote in favor of it. 15 years ago, every single person in the House and Senate supported Israel 100%. And that started to whittle down, and now half of the Democrats, and then, of course, Thomas Massie, who I don't even know what he is, but So they just are coming against Israel, and it's a real tragedy because eventually the stupidest thing on the planet is the American voter. And eventually we're going to vote in a Democrat president, and then we'll have a Democrat Congress with it. And it's going to harm not only this nation greatly, our freedoms, it's going to harm Israel and a lot of other important things because of that. And it's coming. So we just have to live with it. But right now we have a president that understands the need for supporting Israel. He's done a few things in the past week that have been just fantastic. I mean, just great stuff. So let's see here. 314 to 104 to defeat the measure offered as an amendment to the State Department spending bill by Thomas Massie of Kentucky, a maverick who has made his disagreement with his party on Israel a signature issue and recently lost the GOP primary race to run for re-election in the midterms. Yeah, besides Massie, who was the only Republican to back the measure, 103 Democrats voted in favor, a sharp departure from previous years in which bills supporting Israel passed almost unanimously. Democrats on the party's left flank have been strongly pushing to end U.S. military aid to Israel entirely amid the midterm election primary campaigns, while its establishment wing wants to limit the assistance to solely defense weaponry. Massie is a fiscal hawk who opposes all foreign aid, but he said he was also responding to the toll on civilians of Israel's attacks on Hamas in Gaza. His amendment would have barred any funding in the appropriations bill from being used for Israel and blocked $3.3 billion in annual security assistance Washington sends Israel. So not good that he even submitted that, but it's great it got overthrown. The thing that's the most not good is how ignorant people can be about what happened to Israel and how they have responded to it. Despite a lot of destruction over there and a lot of civilians dying, which were solely the fault of the Gazans, people can't seem to understand that. And it's really sad. But that's where we are. From MSN, archaeologists may have found ruins that housed the Ark of the Covenant. They found Shilo some time ago, and they've been looking around at the place for a while, but a new archaeological study at the ancient site of Shilo may have finally uncovered its real-world home. Researchers have excavated the foundations of an ancient structure with dimensions and artifacts that closely match the biblical descriptions of the tabernacle, the tent where the ark was kept before it vanished. While the golden chest itself has not been found, of course not. It was in Shilo. Shilo was wiped out. The ark moved elsewhere, Kiryat Jearim and other places. Eventually it was taken to Jerusalem and it stayed there. And so, they need to do their research when they do these type of articles saying, oh, it's not at Shilo. Well, of course it's not at Shilo. It left there thousands of years ago. But, the Bible is a difficult book, but it's not difficult to pick up and say, just do a search on the internet, Ark, and find out where the last use of Ark is in the Bible or in the Old Testament and where was it. And they didn't do that for this article, and it's too bad. Anyway, does this newly uncovered structure hold the clues needed to solve the 1,000-year-old mystery? Well, no, it doesn't, because we're not going to find it there. So, whatever. The search for the tabernacle has long occupied both historians and theologians. According to the Bible, Indiana Jones found it, so I don't know why we can't find it. But anyway, the gold-plated chest containing the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. Scripture notes that Moses placed the tablets inside, and the ark remained the centerpiece of Israelite worship until it mysteriously vanished from the historical records before the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem in 586 BC. Digging at Tel Shilo, an ancient site in the West Bank known as Israel's first religious capital, archaeologists have uncovered the missing pieces of a massive ancient building. The breakthrough of the current digging season was the discovery of a critical southern wall. By finding this wall, the team can now see the building's full footprint, which runs precisely from east to west. Remarkably, the size and orientation of these ruins align closely with the setup of the tabernacle described in the Bible. It isn't just the stone foundations that have archaeologists excited. It is also the trash and treasures left behind by the people who live there. Near the ancient building, the team uncovered a trove of ritual-related objects that point directly to ancient religious practices. Among the finds are ceramic pomegranates, stone altar horns, and murex shells. They're sea snails that were highly prized in antiquity. The murex shells are particularly fascinating because they were used to produce, anybody? Yeah, the rare blue dye. In the Bible, this specific dye is explicitly associated with the sacred garments worn by the high priests. Even the animal bones left behind at the site tell a story. Archaeologists found that a disproportionate number of the animal remains came from the right side of the body. This seemingly small detail mirrors instructions found in the biblical book of Leviticus, which dictates that the right side of sacrificed animals belonged exclusively to the priests for sacred offerings. From the times of Israel, U.S. halts removal of refuelers from Ben Gurion Airport, but Israel says only 20 can stay. So they were telling them we need to have our space for our civilian aircraft. America says we need this more right now, and 20 are going to stay. So it's something I think I reported on 2 weeks ago. So just to keep you up where that is right now. Got some news from Christianity Today from Chick. Vatican pushes unity, ignores truth. This is just typical of what you would expect of the Vatican and the Pope, but I typed a commentary on Matthew this morning, and while I was going through it, I was typing something about the Pope and, how offended he would be if you said that, he was like the leaders of Israel that Jesus rebuked and said, your vineyard's going to be taken away from you and given to somebody that the guy is probably not saved. I don't know anything about this Pope. I have not read his life. I don't know anything about him, but by his actions alone, he is probably not a saved person. He's just like all of the other people that have been in the Vatican for years that just ignore the Bible, ignore Christianity, and go about doing the goofiest things. Anyway, during a recent visit to Turkey, Leo XIV became the third pope to enter Istanbul's Blue Mosque. However, unlike his predecessors, he not only visited the site, but took a step further. He approved of it. Of course he did. During his tour, he was accompanied by local Muslim leaders and officials and spent time inside the mosque in quiet reflection. Ooh, the Vatican later described the moment this way. Yeah, the Pope entered in silence, in a spirit of recollection and attentive listening, with deep respect for the place and for the faith of those who gather there in prayer. Afterward, Pope Leo went further, referring to the mosque as a space proper to God. Well, which God are you talking about? Right? That's what you have to ask yourself, because it is not the God of the Bible. They are not in any way similar. If you don't know that, try reading up on it, because it's an important point of theology. He described it as a place for people to seek the presence of the Most High. No. However, even many Catholics rejected this statement. Good. Even they understand how stupid that is. Yes. Biblical Christianity and Islam disagree on nearly every major tenet. Islam rejects Christ as the Son of God and rejects his deity altogether. These are what does it say about rejecting the deity of Christ? John says at least 5 times in 1 John. That is the Antichrist. It is the spirit of the Antichrist. To reject the Son is to reject the Father. Okay, you want to know what the spirit of Antichrist is? You don't have to go looking for a guy that's going to be sitting in a temple someday saying he is the Antichrist. He will be, but it is in the world by anybody who denies the deity of Jesus Christ. That is the spirit of Antichrist. The Jehovah's Witnesses are filled with it. Okay, so If you don't understand these points of theology, you need to watch a lot less prophecy updates, and you need to read your Bible and get into a church that has properly conducted sermons. If you want doctrine sermons, I've got an entire list of doctrine sermons under the playlist at the Superior Word. You're going to get all of the proper theology that you need to understand what is going on in Scripture. Is salvation eternal? Are you saved by grace through faith alone? You go on with all these points of doctrine. What is the Trinity? What is the nature of Jesus? What is the nature of the Holy Spirit? I've got doctrine sermons on all of these fundamental points of theology for you to get away from not knowing these things, because this is critical to your relationship with God. Islam rejects Christ as the Son of God. These are two of the biggest foundational differences, yet Pope Leo chose to focus on the non-existent shared values of reverence, prayer, and seeking God. Later during the same trip, Pope Leo traveled to the Patriarchal Church of St. George, where he joined Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew I in a prayer service. The meeting focused heavily on Christian unity and the relationship between Rome and Eastern Orthodoxy. Referring to Christ's prayer that all his disciples may be one, which is torn completely out of its intended context, he pushed for visible unity and encouraged renewed efforts toward full communion among all Christians. That will never happen at the Superior Word Church. That'll never happen. That's not something that will be in any way invited or allowed as long as I'm alive. That will never occur, okay? There is no full communion among people that do not hold the proper theology. And when I'm talking about it, that means biblical theology, not what people say in church that has nothing to do with this book. This book is what guides the faith of true believers. The meeting concluded with Pope Leo and Patriarch Bartholomew signing a joint declaration reaffirming shared commitment to Christian unity and peace, but not to biblical doctrine or truth, which doesn't surprise me. The emphasis on interfaith unity did not stop in Turkey. Shortly afterward, Pope Leo met with participants attending an interfaith conference and again called for greater cooperation between religions. He described compassion and empathy as essential attitudes shared by both Christianity and Islam. His message centered heavily on joining together for a shared social mission and common purpose. Then, ahead of Vesak, the major Buddhist holiday commemorating the birth, enlightenment, and death of Buddha, the Vatican released a message encouraging Christians and Buddhists to become artisans of peace. But the statement went further than extending holiday greetings. The message equated Buddhist teachings with Jesus' words in Matthew 5:9 and 5:44, claiming that there was a deep spiritual convergence between Buddhism and Christianity. It stated that both traditions converge toward a shared vision of peace and encourage religious leaders to become authentic partners in dialogue and true agents of reconciliation. Every single thing about what you just heard is bad, right to the core. It is rotten. From Protestia, gay communion bread. Church turns their communion host rainbow-colored to celebrate Pride. Christ Episcopal Church in Dayton, Ohio, is led by the Reverend Peter Homeyer. An opening and affirming congregation, they spend much of their time focusing on and promoting their aberrant sexual proclivities and affinity for all things LGBTQ. That's okay, they're going to get chucked into the abyss unless they turn from this stuff, and it'll be soon. The Lord is not going to wait around forever. During a recent sermon on the 5th day of Pentecost, they decided to incorporate their love of all things gay into their communion service, using food dye to turn their communion bread rainbow-colored in order to celebrate Pride and be inclusive of their LGBTQ members. Once again, everything about that is bad. Got some news from the Mideast and Africa today. Zero Hedge. Turkey seeks Moscow permission to offload its S-400s, paving way for U.S. F-35 deal. I don't know if that F-35 deal is going to go through or not. Trump says it's okay. I don't really think he believes that. I think he's relying on Congress to not allow it, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Doesn't really matter because Israel will still be far superior to Turkey, even if they do have F-35s there. So anyway, in a move that could break a years-long defense procurement deadlock with Washington, Turkey is finalizing the sale of its Russian S-400 air defense systems to Gulf states, potentially clearing the way for Ankara to buy U.S. F-35 fighter jets. We'll see where that goes. Zero Hedge. You will not believe what's happening in this tiny English village. We've seen this all over Ireland. We've seen it elsewhere. It's happening in a little tiny English village called Paddington. Residents of the small, leafy Oxfordshire village of Piddington, not Paddington, Piddington, have delivered a thunderous rebuke to Westminster's latest asylum experiment. With roughly 180 adults casting ballots on July 4th, 175 backed holding a referendum on breaking away from the UK in protest against plans to house up to 1,250 single adult male asylum seekers at an adjacent former Ministry of Defense site. So there's 180 adults in this town, and they want to throw in 1,250 terrorists is what's basically being done. That works out to 96% yes vote, and the other 4% were obviously in need of having their brains scooped out. But in a 96% vote in a community of around 370, where decisions about their future are being made without them. The move comes after the Home Office announced in late June it would convert the redundant military storage facility sitting right between Piddington and Upper Arncott into basic accommodation for single men aged 18 to 65. Utility companies have already received instructions to prepare power, water, and sewage connections, with work eyed for late August or early September. No detailed public proposal or full impact assessment has been published. You want a full impact assessment? Dead bodies lying in the streets of Piddington. That's what you'll get. Let's see here. Locals say the site was never built for this purpose and sits next to a children's play area and reserve. That sounds like a smart idea. Most of them probably won't speak the language, so there's going to be communication problems. And as far as I know, no help's been set up for language. Of course not. We haven't had any detail of how it's going to work. So if it does go through, it'll be a mess. Inadequate provision has been made. We're supposed to live in a democracy, and this is just trying to bypass democracy and get it all done before anyone notices. Sounds like the Biden administration. This is not an isolated outburst. Across Britain, similar downtop placements of large numbers of single adult male asylum seekers into foreign military sites or new housing have triggered the same pattern of ignored residents, safety worries for women and children, and strained local resources. Everything about that, just like what I read you from Christianity, is bad. Everything. There's no good that's going to come from what these people are doing. These left-wing lunatics in the UK destroying a nation that used to be, it's not America. That's why we left there, but at least it's, not Syria. It's not Syria. If they want, they can send them to Syria, and then they can be in Syria. Mail online. Air passenger invokes Sharia law. An air passenger gets on the plane and invokes Sharia law to avoid sitting next to a woman before slapping stewardess who confronted him on a flight from Turkey. So I went and I did a search, slapping women and Russells on flight from Turkey. There's a lot of them. This isn't just one. I mean, there were, I'm looking for photos to match the thing. And there were so many that came up. I'm like, this is like regular stuff. It just happened to make mail online that day, so I saw it. A passenger on a Germany-bound flight invoked Sharia law to avoid sitting next to a woman before slapping an air stewardess who confronted him, according to a police. So what they'll do is they'll say, well, he can't fly anymore. He'll have to take the train around Germany when he slaps people. Whatever. Mail online. Denmark will ban burqas in schools and universities under plans to tackle parallel societies. It's a start, but probably too late. Zero Hedge. Muhammad tops baby boys' names in England and Wales for the third straight year. National suicide. That's all this is. National suicide. Zero Hedge. Afghan asylum seeker walks free after sexually assaulting multiple young girls at a German pool. It's okay. You didn't mean it. Mongolia, from the medievalists. New exhibition explores the medieval Mongol Empire. During the 13th century, Genghis Khan and his successors created the largest contiguous empire in history, stretching from the shores of Japan to Eastern Europe. At its height, the Mongol Empire controlled more than 22% of the world's landmass, connecting societies across Eurasia through trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. While Genghis Khan is often remembered primarily as a conqueror, the exhibition aims to present a broader picture of the empire he created, showing how a man who began life in poverty united the Mongol tribes and built a political and military power that transformed the medieval world. Really cool stuff there. I'm going to go. Okay, did you notice how they said that the Mongol Empire stretched from the shores of Japan to Eastern Europe? The shores of Japan are over a body of water. Japan is an island. Why did they go to the shores of Japan and not just into Japan? Does anybody know why? It's where the word kamikaze, the divine wind, comes from. Right? The divine wind, they were coming to attack Japan, and a wind came and destroyed the entire Mongol Empire that was coming across to attack them, and they made it to the shores of Japan dead. Yeah, there you go. Daniel 12 technology, zero hedge, sub-second detect to fire. Sub-second detect to fire. Futuristic dome turret could be U.S. military's answer to drone swarms. Now listen to this. This is kind of cool. Picket Defense Systems is developing a next-generation counter-drone turret designed to eliminate the delays conventional systems face when targeting fast-moving, one-way attack drones or incoming swarms. The turret does this. This is a turret, okay? So it has to think, I got to go over there and start shooting. This doesn't have that problem. This is a major vulnerability confronting the U.S. military and allied forces as drone threats proliferate across modern battlefields that Pickett plans to solve. Its Inferno RTC uses a 54-barrel hemispherical array that continuously maintains 360-degree coverage, allowing the turret to select and fire optimal barrel without needing to rotate and lock onto the target first. It already knows it's coming. It just starts shooting without any rotation, any calculation, anything. That is amazing. Defense Blog recently explained why Pickett's 54-barrel hemispherical array could represent the next evolution in turret design for defeating fast-moving drone swarms. The aiming latency problem the Inferno is designed to solve is one of the most technically challenging aspects of close-in drone defense, and it has become increasingly urgent as adversaries have adopted tactics specifically designed to exploit it. Conventional counter-drone gun systems, whether mounted on vehicles or fixed at a site, must physically slew a barrel to point at an incoming threat before firing, a process that takes measurable time even on fast actuating electromechanical systems. Against a single drone approaching at moderate speed, that delay is manageable. Against a coordinated swarm of fast-moving targets approaching from multiple directions simultaneously, it creates engagement sequencing problems that single-barrel systems have no mechanical solution for. The Inferno's continuously rotating architecture eliminates that sequencing problem by having a barrel already in approximately the right position for any threat vector at any moment. Pickett appears to be targeting the civilian counter-drone market with a dual-use turret designed for critical infrastructure, data centers, energy facilities, airports, stadiums, and commercial ports. Well, if it's going to civilians, I'd like to have one at my house, right? It'd be great. Okay, sign me up. It's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues noted in the book of Revelation. From Stat, RFK Jr. plans to create list of injuries caused by COVID-19 vaccines. He's actually going after the beast. Kennedy is set to start the process of compiling a list of injuries that are presumed to be caused by COVID shots. People with those conditions could then ask for compensation from the government. It's not clear what conditions may make the list, and that's something that outside experts are keeping a close eye on. New York Post, extremely rare cancer. It's not from COVID. I'm just reporting this because it's sad and we need to be attentive in our own communities. Rare cancer striking kids in rich Southern California city takes worrying turn as possible causes emerge. Locals in Ladera Ranch, Orange County, have spent months raising concerns about at least 6 local children that were diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, a bone and soft tissue cancer that affects only about 200 to 240 children nationwide each year. So they got 6 out of a whole nation of 240. Residents say their own investigation has uncovered what they believe is an unusually heavy use of pesticides and herbicides throughout the community, and that more than 60 people could be impacted. So keep that in mind. Epic Times, Germany stops recommending COVID-19 vaccinations for most people younger than 75. Who would have thought? Epic Times, Governor Hochul urges mask use as Canadian wildfire smoke blankets New York. Why doesn't she just not say anything? If you want to wear a mask, you just, we got smoke in the air and I'm going to go put it on. Why does she have to urge people? It's like they can't get away from this control thing. No. Morality. Zero Hedge. The UK government lobbied for putting migrants and trans people on banknotes. Remember they took off Churchill and they put on a bunch of animals? The original submission was to put gay people on their banknotes. Wow. The UK's own cabinet office pushed hard, they pushed to overhaul banknotes by elevating LGBT plus and ethnic minority figures, claiming historic greats like Winston Churchill gave an incomplete picture of British identity. This push came just before the BOE decided to ditch those same towering historical figures for images of hedgehogs and foxes. The latest revelation exposes the ideological machinery at work inside Whitehall. While the public recoiled at the idea of swapping national heroes for animals, government officials were actively lobbying for even more radical identity-driven changes. The whole saga is especially ridiculous because of the core argument for axing Churchill and other giants was that they were supposedly too ideologically divisive for modern Britain. Yet officials simultaneously pushed to install figures selected explicitly through the lens of identity politics and group representation, an approach guaranteed to be far more polarizing in practice. So they're saying one thing and they're doing the same thing on the other side, but worse. It reveals the selective outrage. Traditional British heroes are labeled divisive for their achievements, while injecting contemporary activism onto the currency is framed as unifying progress. From Fox, GLAAD, which is that gay thing, GLAAD, releases particularly concerning report showing shrinking LGBTQ representation for a third year in a row. They're worried about that. GLAAD found only 20% of films featured these lunatics in 2025. They're like 2% of the population, maybe? Yes. Gateway Pundit. UK police offer unreserved apology and 25,000 euros to Irish comedian and writer Graham Lennon after armed arrest at Heathrow Airport for gender-critical ex-posts. He made a couple of posts where he's critical of this gender-reaffirming stuff, and they got arms out. They don't even carry arms in the UK. And they got arms out, and they arrested this guy. So they gave him an apology and 25,000 euros. Gateway Pundit. RFK Jr. delivers major blow to Planned Parenthood by canceling federal grants over explicit content pushed on children. Breitbart. Bill would require California community college health centers to provide access to abortion pills. Require. The California community colleges, all of them, you must have access to abortion pills. Kill, kill, kill. Gateway Pundit. Nightmare in the Netherlands, 15-year-old girl who identified as trans boy, then as a dog, brutally murders her parents. Yeah. Main Wire. Department of Education launches initiative to protect students from sexual abuse by school officials and teachers. Yahoo! Same-sex couple sues surrogate after she refused request to abort baby with a cleft lip. They're a same-sex couple. They want a surrogate to have a baby for him. He's got a cleft lip. She won't abort it, and they are suing her to kill that baby. Wow. The Post-Millennial. Washington man accused of offering $1,000 to impregnate child arrested in undercover sting. Listen to this. Believing he was speaking with a mother willing to facilitate the sexual abuse of her underage daughter. That is one sick human being. Breitbart. Olympic figure skater's brother is now dominating girls' sports. Okay, we got some other news here from Just the News. Venezuela reforms its socialist oil policies and production soars with Trump's help. All of a sudden, they can pump oil out of the ground after all these years of not being able to do it because Donald Trump went down there and took care of things. Under the former communist regime, the country's oil industry floundered. In May 2021, Venezuela was producing less than 600,000 barrels per day, despite having the world's largest reserves. This past May, it was producing double that, nearly 1.2 million. Venezuela nationalized its oil industry in the 1970s. Then in 2007, former Chavez forced foreign oil companies to surrender majority stakes to the state, which resulted in the departure of ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips. Of the big players, only Chevron acquiesced to the communist leader's demands. Ever since the capture of Maduro in January, the Trump admin has been guiding the country towards reforms that would unleash these resources, and the new regulations are a significant step in dislodging the centralized control of the industry that has scared off foreign investment. This is what they want in New York, by the way, this exact type of mentality. New regulation layout, rules for how the private sector will operate from the wells to the retail points, as well as taxes that reflect the risk profile of assets, including offshore oil operations. In January, President Trump met with more than 24 oil executives and companies involved in infrastructure development and project finance to discuss ramping up production of Venezuelan oil. At the time, experts cast considerable doubt on the prospects of investing in Venezuela. The country's oil infrastructure, neglected and abused under years of socialist rule, would need billions of dollars to refurbish or replace. Trump threw out a $100 billion figure. He figures that's about what it is. And companies were seeking security for their assets from socialist expropriation and protection for their equipment and personnel from criminal violence. Exxon CEO told Trump that Venezuela would need to reform its laws before it could be an attractive investment opportunity, and he expressed a lot of skepticism about the company's prospects there. Trump wasn't happy with the CEO's doubt and suggested he might keep Exxon out of the boom he was sure to come. Even if peace does come between U.S. and Iran, global interest in oil resources that are not dependent on the Strait of Hormuz will not go away anytime soon. It's possible, though not certain, that Venezuela will become a major player in world energy market, and U.S. companies appear likely to play a big role in the future. From EIA.gov, the United States produced more crude oil than any other country in 2025. Crude oil production, including least condensate, averaged a record 13.6 million barrels per day in 2025, breaking the previous U.S. and global production record. U.S. crude oil production was about 40% higher on average in 2025 than that from the next two largest global crude oil producers, Russia and Saudi Arabia. Parallel to the growth in crude oil production, associated natural gas production has also surged, driven by activity in oil-dominant plays like the Permian. This abundance has continued to support domestic natural gas-fired electric energy and growing natural gas exports. In 2024, the most recent year data are available. The U.S. was the world's largest natural gas producer. WhiteHouse.gov, fact sheet. President Donald Trump modifies two national monuments, restoring sensible land management. Do you remember when Biden went in there and he took millions of acres out of the public square? He just made them all this government entity. You can't do anything there. You can't dig anything there. Trump is undoing all of that. Proclamations modifying two Utah national monuments, the Bears Ears National Monument and Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. The proclamations reduce these monuments to the appropriate size that allow for common sense land use in these areas. One proclamation reduces the size of the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument from approximately 1.87 million acres to approximately 181,500 acres. So he's taking away a giant swath of what Biden purposefully took away from America so he could destroy this country. He was doing his very best to bring us to our knees. Another proclamation reduces the size of the Bears Ears National Monument from approximately 1.36 million acres to approximately 121,000 acres. President Trump is ending the overreach and abuse of the Antiquities Act, which has been used to restrict the uses of America's public lands. The Antiquities Act requires that objects protected by a monument be of historic or scientific interest, and that the area reserved for the monument to protect the objects be the smallest area compatible with their proper care and management. Right-sizing these national monuments allows for the restoration of public access and traditional multi-use activities on these federal lands and waters, such as grazing, timber harvest, fishing, hunting. You couldn't do any of this anymore because of Biden. He took all of that away. Farmers have been out there for 150 years. Got to leave this land. That is all done now. All done. It's going back to the people. Infrastructure upgrades, motorized recreation. You can take your three-wheeler out there, or whatever you call four-wheeler, that thing that kills you when you hit a bump. Anyway, President Trump's DOI rescinded the BLM's public lands rule, reaffirming the commitment to restoring balance in federal land management by prioritizing multiple use access, elevating local decision-making, and supporting responsible energy development, ranching, grazing, timber production, and recreation. From the post-millennial, what about Canada? Canadian government apologizes for creating national parks and calls them a colonial injustice. Got a tale of two parks there, don't you? Mail online. Ukraine decimates Putin's shadow fleet. Sea of Azov becomes Russian shipping graveyard as Kiev hits 116 vessels in a week-long drone onslaught. What was happening when Israel was bombing Iran or Gaza? What was the first thing they cried? Global warming. Climate change. They're ruining the environment. 116 vessels in a single week. Oil-carrying vessels burning on the sea and then sinking. And not a word from the climate people. Not a word. That's all you heard. Trump goes into Iran. All he's doing is ruining the environment. He's just going on and on with destroying our planet. With a couple bombs in ground locations. And this guy's out there blowing up 116 vessels with oil on them. And nobody says a word. The most recent blow on July 14th saw explosions light up the night sky as Kiev's drones swooped down and attacked Russian tankers in the Sea of Azov. The shadow fleet is wasting away, said the commander of Ukraine's drone forces in a post updating the operations scorecard. He said the aim was to damage Russia's shadow fleet and to limit Russia's petrol supplies to Moscow-controlled Crimea. And guess what? They blew up a couple more just yesterday. If you want to see that, go to thecgreport.com. Check it every day. You'll get your most current news and all kinds of exciting other things there. Zero Hedge. Not seen, it's called thecgreport.com, not just CG Report, thecgreport.com. Zero Hedge. Not seen since World War II. New Texas shipyard to hire 10,000 workers and mass produce drone boats. Building on our coverage of autonomous maritime warfare this week, Saronic Technologies is preparing to build a massive shipyard on the Texas coast capable of producing autonomous surface vessels at scale. A project expected to create more than 10,000 jobs. Whether it is one-way attack boats or loitering munitions, the U.S. military appears to set a procurement supercycle beginning next year. Breitbart. Those drone boats are very cool. They took a couple of them and put them in the Persian Gulf and blew up some Iranian stuff a week ago. Really cool. If you want to see that in action on any given day, go to thecgreport.com, and I love to link things blowing up. That's great. So, yeah, you'll see a theme there. Breitbart, House passes bill preventing credit card companies from tracking gun sales. Isn't that nice? The House says credit card companies will no longer be able to track gun sales. We'll see if it actually passes both the House and the Senate, but that's good. The Business Standard, U.S. revives rule that could deny green cards over public benefits. If you're on government dole, no green card for you. TechCrunch. China's state-owned space company successfully launched a Long March orbital rocket and landed the booster on a seagoing recovery vessel, making it the second country to achieve the feat. Actually, it's not the second country, it's the first country because a single guy in the United States is the first country to do it, Elon Musk. He can land them like this, and China finally got it, and the landing was so terrible. You wouldn't believe it. There's so much blowback from the exhaust coming up. I bet you the thing is not usable again. It's going to take some time for them to get this right. Musk got it right. China needs to work on it. Next article, Japan Times, a couple days later, Japan successfully launches and lands reusable rocket. They did a pretty good job of it. better than China, but still, I think it probably would not be reusable because of the fire that they just didn't coordinate properly. And it looked, if you want to see that type of thing, never mind.
Go to the CG report.
Zero hedge. Women over 40 are now having babies more than American teenagers.
Wow.
Yeah. Just the news. Georgia election chief says dead dog received a voter solicitation mail. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Who said it?
Registered case.
You're not going to get this, but it's a good one anyway. The world potential market for copying machines is 5,000 at the most. The world potential for copying machines. We got more than that on one airbase nowadays. Listen to who said this. IBM. Yeah, to the eventual founders of Xerox, saying the photocopier had no market large enough to justify production in 1959. That is not a forward-thinking company, I'll tell you that. Okay, we got a lesser here for you. There are monuments taking up land, and Trump says it is sure out of hand. He screams, "Acres away!" while some cry, "What the hey?" Idol worshippers don't understand. Okay, got a couple of ironies for you, and this is very sad. Death is sad, but it's ironic sometimes. Gateway pundit. Pro-Palestine, anti-ICE American citizen living in Ireland is brutally murdered, allegedly by her asylum seeker that she knew. Yeah, she's dating him, and she's anti-ICE, but she dates this guy and gets killed by him. Breitbart, trans-American who fled to the Netherlands now fears violence from Muslim migrants.
That's just good stuff.
That's just good stuff. Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG report, prophecy report for the week.